Joe Goldberg thought he had finally escaped his past, blending seamlessly into the refined world of academia in London. He had a new name, a new identity, and a quiet life filled with books, students, and the comforting illusion of normalcy. But deep down, he knew the truth: his past was never far behind. He told himself he had changed, that he was better now, that his mistakes belonged to another version of himself, but the urge to watch, to study, to understand still pulsed beneath the surface. And then, he saw her. She was elegant, intelligent, with a sharp wit and an intoxicating passion for literature that made his heart race. A fellow professor, untouchable yet fascinating, she became the center of his thoughts before he could even recognize what was happening. But unlike the others before her, she was different. She was guarded, elusive. And for the first time in his life, Joe wasn't sure if he was the hunter or the prey. It started subtly: a lingering glance that felt too knowing, a passing comment that seemed too precise. Then, the messages began. At first, it was a simple note slipped under his office door: "I know who you are, Joe." His heart pounded as he read it, his fingers tightening around the paper. He told himself it was a mistake, a joke. But deep inside, he knew someone was watching him. The paranoia set in. The careful routines he had built began to crumble. He changed his routes home. He double-checked every locked door. He erased every trace of himself he could find. But it didn't matter. The messages kept coming. "You thought you were the only one watching?" They knew everything. His past, his crimes, the bodies he had left behind. And they weren't just watching. They were hunting. Late one night, standing by his window, he saw a shadow move outside. A hooded figure, motionless, just waiting. Joe rushed down, his breath ragged, his hands trembling as he reached the street, but the figure was already gone, leaving only the echo of a whisper in his mind: "You always thought you were in control, Joe. But this time, you lose." Panic turned to obsession. He had to find out who was behind this. He traced every interaction, studied every detail, but the deeper he looked, the clearer it became: this wasn't just someone seeking revenge. This was someone like him. A student of human behavior, a master of manipulation. Someone who had been watching him long before he had noticed. And then, it happened. A final confrontation in a dimly lit library, the air thick with the scent of old books and something far more dangerous. Joe turned a corner, and there they were, waiting for him. He had spent his life watching others, controlling the narrative, deciding fates. But now, for the first time, someone had written his story. The screen fades to black, the last sound a quiet, knowing voice whispering in the dark: "Game over, Joe." Joe Goldberg had always been a master of control, weaving his way into people's lives with careful precision. But now, in the heart of New York City, his old hunting grounds, something felt different. He had returned under yet another name, wearing the mask of a quiet bookseller once more, convincing himself that this time, he could truly be normal. He had routines, a safe apartment, and most importantly, no attachments. But as always, love had other plans. It started with a chance encounter. She wasn't like the others, no, she was sharp, perceptive, and completely uninterested in him. And that was what made her impossible to ignore. He watched from afar, convincing himself it wasn't the same as before. He wasn't obsessed, not really. He was simply curious. A few searches online. A quick glance at her social media. A casual bump in at the cafe she always went to. That wasn't stalking, it was just understanding. But then, something strange happened. One night, he returned home to find his apartment door unlocked. Nothing was taken, nothing was moved except for a single object on his desk, a book he had never owned, open to a highlighted passage. "I see you, Joe." His blood ran cold. He checked his phone, his laptop, every security measure he had in place, but there was nothing. No signs of forced entry, no cameras catching a figure. He wasn't the only one watching anymore. The paranoia crept in like a slow poison. He started noticing figures in the distance, conversations that hushed when he entered a room. His carefully built world was unraveling. Someone was in his head playing his game against him. And then came the messages. Not texts, not emails, notes left in places only he should have known about. You thought you were the only one who could hide? They weren't just stalking him. They were inside his mind, predicting his every move. Joe tried to track them, piece together their identity, but every lead twisted back to himself. It was like chasing a shadow, one that knew all of his secrets. Then, one night, it all came to a head. His phone buzzed with a single, final message: turn around. He did. And there they were. Someone who had been in his orbit all along, watching him as carefully as he had watched others. Someone who had survived him. The air between them was electric, charged with something more terrifying than fear, understanding. Because this time, Joe wasn't the predator. He was the prey. The screen fades to black as a quiet voice murmurs in the darkness, "Now, let's see how you like being watched." Joe Goldberg was careful. He had to be. After what happened in London, he had rebuilt his life in Chicago under the name Jonathan Carter, working as an archivist in a grand, forgotten library. He liked the quiet. Books didn't judge, books didn't scream, books didn't run. He told himself this time was different. This time, he was different. But change is a funny thing, isn't it? Because then she walked in. Tall, poised, with a voice like a whispered secret. She wasn't like the others. She didn't fawn over him or hang on to his words. No, she saw through him in a way that made him uneasy. And yet, he couldn't stop himself. He learned her habits, her favorite books, the way her fingers lingered on the spines of novels before she chose one. He watched, but from a safe distance. It wasn't obsession. Not yet. Then, the notes started appearing. At first, they were harmless lines of poetry left on the desk where he worked. But soon, they became personal. "You hide well, Joe. But not well enough." His pulse quickened. No one should know that name. He checked his digital footprint, erased everything, but the messages kept coming. And then, one night, he found a book on his doorstep. A copy of Crime and Punishment, with a note scrawled inside. "You and I aren't so different, are we?" A trap was closing around him, and for the first time in his life, Joe wasn't sure if he could escape. The final blow came when he walked into the library basement and found a mirror positioned at the far end of the room. Words were written in red across the glass, "Welcome to the other side of obsession." And behind him, reflected in the glass, a shadow moved.